Hey. It is Tuesday, September 10th, 7 p.m. on the East Coast. Good evening. How everyone is doing good tonight. I see that. Hi, Beth. Hi, Cash. If you're just joining us, say hello. Let us know where you're from in the chat. We'll always give a couple minutes to get in and get settled. So grab a snack, grab something to drink. You know, the usual. I've got stories today, so I hope you've got stories today because we've got stuff to talk about. We're going to talk about fighting our OCD today. We'll see if Isostasia is here, Beth. Hi, Beth. Hi, Cash, as always. And Beth, we can talk about your situation too if you'd like, only if you'd like to. If you're here, please say hi. Let us know where you're from if you're new. Hi, Jenna. Good to see you. I think I'm going to name my memoir "The Good Yank," Selwyn. I don't know. It just seems like a catchy name. Then I'll have the 4 in the first few pages. To my Selwyn in Australia. Thanks for the good yank. So yeah, awesome, Beth. I'm so glad. Good night, brother. It's a terrible accent. Hi, Sean. It's good to see your name. We just have about 30 or 45 more seconds. So if you're, and no rush, but if you're here and we don't know you're here, and I don't know why I refer to myself in the third person because I normally don't, but Dave Raven in the house. Hi, Dave. Please let us know you're here. Say hello. You never have to comment again. Just say hi. Hello, Ethan. This is Andres, listening from Costa Rica. Glad to have you from Costa Rica. It's a spot I want to go to. It's gorgeous. I know it's gorgeous. I've seen the pictures. It's supposed to be beautiful. Let's get through some opening. Hey, Robert. Let's get through some opening housekeeping so we can dive into conversation and questions. So if you don't know me, my name is Ethan Smith. I'm a national advocate for the International OCD Foundation. This community conversation is intended to serve as educational content and is not intended to replace therapy. For treatment-related questions, please be sure to work with your local provider or contact a local clinician. The IOCDF is not a crisis hotline. If you are ever feeling suicidal or unsafe, please go to your local emergency room. You can call 911 or the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline by dialing 988. It's also worth mentioning that today is World Suicide Prevention Day, which of course is a commitment and action to prevent suicide and let people know that they are preventable. So again, if you are feeling unsafe or uncertain about being safe, please call one of those numbers or visit the website. As always, we like to keep this a safe space as possible. And remember that this is being broadcast on several social media platforms. So keep that in mind as we talk about our lives and open up and get personal. With all of that, welcome this evening. Let me see, who did I miss when I was reading that? Hey, Zach, good to see you. Katie O'Dunn, my lovely wife. Hi, Katie. Leslie from North Carolina. A lot of new names. I'm super psyched. Uma in the house. I love you too, little sis. And thank you. I am healing up. Diana, good to see you. Matt Bannister in the UK. What's up? Beth Carducci, Cash, Matt. Okay. So lastly, I'll say it one more time. If you're just joining us or if you're here, please say hello. Let us know where you're from. I just like getting Ethan updates, to be honest, as make me think, oh, I've got updates. I have updates. But before we dive in, you know what, Selwyn? I run my own streams now. Let me find out where to kick this guy out. I'm great at dishing it, but I'm really bad at taking it. So I'm going to embrace this. Maybe it's the light. Maybe I am. Maybe I dye it gray just because, maybe I do. So thank you for that. Hi, Rosie. Okay. So as always, how's everyone doing? Before we talk about me, I always like to talk about you. Y'all are amazing. Support one another. How's everyone doing? How are you feeling? How is your OCD? How are you? How is life? What are your wins? What are you struggling with? I had a really hard week. So if you want me to start, I can start. And then we can dive into some things. Beth, we can talk about what's going on with you. And you just let me know. This is your conversation, and so you just let me know where you want to start talking, and we can definitely dive in. But I'm so glad to be here with all of you. It's one of my favorite nights of the week. So thank you for showing up. Oh, Cash, I don't know about that, buddy. All right, well, I'm going to start, but as always, like this is very much about you. So as I talk, if you have questions or comments or concerns or anything, please put them in the chat and we'll definitely get to them. Beth wrote, my therapist called yesterday to give me a pep talk. Beth, I really want to talk to you, and I think maybe we can get some support here from some other folks. But I'll lead. So for those of you, Selwyn wrote, under a lot of pressure, rental crisis here today is our last day here with no rental yet found. And it's my birthday, so I'm trying not to freak out and let the OCD kick in. Well, first of all, happy birthday down under. That sounds like just a hard situation. And I think that's completely valid to have a lot of anxiety around, not being sure where you're going to hang your hat, as they say. So thank you for being here and letting us support you in any way that we can. And please keep us updated how you're doing. And a very happy birthday to you, Selwyn. I'm not sure how old you are, but we'll just assume late 80s based on your energy, and we'll go from there. So lots of love in the chat. Just because he's having a hard time doesn't mean that I can't give him a hard time, because he gave me some shit. So what goes around comes around. All right. So I had an interesting week. On Wednesday, around 12:45 in the afternoon Eastern time, I was carrying a box down the stairs to the basement when I missed a step. I think I missed like the fifth from the last step, the fifth from the bottom, and fell down the rest. And I've got one of these now, which if you've ever walked on them is really challenging. Thank you, Jenna. Jenna just wrote, I just wanted to say I listened to your OCD Foundation speech and it was amazing. Thank you so much, Jenna. I appreciate you. If you have any questions, or feel free to weigh in, but thank you so much. I appreciate that. So I have one of these now. Any guesses to what I broke? I know, Jane. I know. First of all, I didn't realize what kind of upper body strength this requires. I am now completely toned and shredded from the waist up. So I know, it really does. Here, we'll just leave this here as a reminder. I'm just kidding. I thought my ankle. So I hit, fortunately, a concrete wall, broke my fall into the concrete floor. So the floor didn't take the brunt of it. The wall paused it. I thought I broke my ankle. I ended up breaking my left foot in two places. Was that box gray hair? Oh, Selwyn's in a mood tonight. And no, Salon died, of course. Oh, that's a good idea, Zach. And I appreciate it. So yeah, broke my foot in two places. Hi, Lydia. And so that sucked. What happened? Yeah, it was some of the worst. I've never broken a bone or two bones. I've been fortunate in that fact. I will tell you, it's some of the worst pain I've been in. I don't know if it's the specific. Of course, I know Lydia, which Lydia it is. And so, Beth, that could be your $1 billion idea. But that isn't. Here's the interesting thing. So, as you know, if you've seen my talk or you've heard me talk about my themes, One of my most intense theme when I was really struggling was a fear of hitting my head and having a brain bleed. And so when I sort of settled, I was lying on my back on the concrete floor. And of course, I was grasping my ankle, but immediately through the pain, I went, did I hit my head on the floor or on the wall? What if I hit my head? And oh my God, all of these, oh gosh, Beth. Yeah, exactly. And all of these facts to back it up. Hi, Brooke. You know, I fell down the stairs. I'm hurt. I'm on the floor. And of course, it does. And I didn't get many pain meds. The ER was terrible. Like, put me under the wrong patient, didn't know who I was, got the diagnosis wrong. Like, they were awful. But I will tell you that, yeah, my OCD thoughts, all my old OCD thoughts about harming myself and my fear of hitting my head and how could my head be so close to the ground but not hit it? And I started getting existential with it, right? Like, well, I don't remember exactly what happened. I just remember losing my balance. And then what? Does that mean I lost consciousness? Or does that mean I just don't remember and it's fuzzy? Is that what your brain, I really started deep diving. So the EMTs came. Oh, Nikki, stop being such an overachiever. Nikki broke her foot in 3 places. I'm sorry, Nikki. And so, yes, my mother rides horses and has a few to talk to. A few. Hi, Isostasia. See, Beth, Isostasia's here. Hello, everyone. You were missed. We were talking about you. We're glad you're here. So the EMTs came and, of course, asked all the questions and started with the foot and the pain and the 10 and all that. Did you hit your head? Well, that's a tough one to answer. I don't know. Did I? Did I not hit my head? It doesn't hurt, but how could I not have hit my head? And the OCD was just screaming. So what I said was, I don't know. I might have, but I'm not sure. And so they took me to the ER and where I sat, as always. And I will say my proudest fight OCD moment was when it came down to speaking to the doctor, and the doctor was going over all of the various things. And obviously my foot was huge. I mean, it was massive. I'll share pictures. I don't know if I can share pictures. It was gross. It looked, my foot looked 9 months pregnant. It was really weird. It's amazing how your body can do things. But the doctor came and said, anything else bothering you? And I explained, other than the extreme pain from my foot and sort of other places that I banged myself, I said, well, I'm not sure if I hit my head. So he asked me some questions and he did the eye things. And what he said was, my hand looked like a Macy's Day Parade float. Seriously. What he said was, thank you, Katie. I appreciate you sharing the picture. Please don't. I'd forgotten about my toenails for a minute. It's not the best picture. So what they said was, well, it appears you don't need, so there's a test that they ask you a bunch of questions, and if you score a certain amount, then they give you a CAT scan. And back in the day, when I thought I hit my head or wanted to find out if I had a brain bleed, I knew all the right things to say to score, as high as possible, where they'd be like, yep, you need a CAT scan. So I answered honestly, and they said my score was 0. But then the doctor said, but if you're feeling anxious about it, we're more than happy to give you a CAT scan just to rule it out so you don't have to worry about it. And when they said that, I mean, like, that was, it was like the ultimate, like, oh my God, I could put it to bed right now. I don't have to sit with the uncertainty. Who cares if I hit my head? And I just remember thinking to myself, I'm not doing this. I'm not doing this again. I don't think I did. I ran through, I would be certain if I knew I did. I didn't have a lump. I answered all the questions truthfully. You know what? I'm going to say no. And I did. I said no. No thanks. Are you sure? No, I don't want a CAT scan. That was really, really hard. I haven't had like head hitting brain bleed intrusive thoughts in a long time. And I think it was valid. It was valid to have it triggered like that. But just because there was a actual fall, just because I had hurt myself, just because I had broken bones, and I had really taken a tumble, doesn't validates why my OCD and anxiety is significantly spiking. And at the same time, I'm not. OCD wants me to use that as fact and proof why I should get something that I don't need. When in reality, I had a foot injury. I sprained some ankle. I had some bumps on my elbows, and that was it. So yes, all these things really happened. And while I wasn't sure, I was pretty sure. And that was good enough for me. And I'm not going to lie. And thank y'all for all the love. Thank you, Matt and Beth and Lydia. I appreciate that. It was a big win. It really was. But in the few days after, like when I would be, of course, they said, now if you're nauseous or you have a headache or you start to do blah, 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 come back in. And of course, if I got a headache or I got nauseous just from worrying or anxiety, right? My brain went, oh my God, I should have had the thing. But what I thought to myself, honestly, was, and I remember having this very specific thought while I was at the ER, was I thought, I'm willing to wake up in the middle of the night having all the side effects and symptoms of a bleed, as scary as they can be, and risk my life and believe that I'll make it to the hospital and it will be solved and I will be okay. I will choose that over certainty, because after 3 times in a psychiatric hospital and everything that I went through, in 2010, 2011, it wasn't worth it. It wasn't worth it. Every time I've debated, been uncertain, it's been OCD. And every time I've just known, like when I went to the ER in March, when I was spitting up blood, like there was no doubt. I wasn't unsure. There was no question, right? And there was so much question here. I was just like, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to buy back into it. I'd rather risk my life, because OCD will take it long before something like that will. So that's what I did. And I was excited to share that with y'all. Other than that, OCD was really, really loud this week. Very screamy. I'll say that the obsessions were really, really loud. I did not compulse. Maybe a couple times Googled or something as my foot turned many colors. But I didn't compulse. And I think I honestly handled it really well, considering. Yeah, Katie wrote this. See, I wasn't lying. We got home and he literally said, I would rather die of a brain bleed than go down the compulsion road. That's true. And part of that reason is you all. I mean, you all hold me so accountable. I don't want to come here and speak to you. And it's okay. I know that I will receive compassion and grace if I did get the CAT scan. But I really, really, really want to live into what I talk about. It's really important to me to do so. And so, yeah, the rest of the week was challenging. I've never had a broken bone. I was nervous. I felt helpless many times, a lot of emotions and feelings, and I felt stupid for falling and all the things, as Katie would say. But I think I'm a lot stronger for that decision, and I'm proud of myself for doing that. And obviously, now, in retrospect, it was obviously OCD. And yeah, so that was my week. So I'm slowly getting better. The foot is healing, or at least I think it is. And life moves on. Let me see here. I've been dealing with somatic symptoms that stem from my OCD anxiety for over a year now, and it's really hard not to think that it's something physical, like a serious medical condition. Yeah, Maya, I can very much relate to this. In fact, if you asked a question before, Maya, just repost it in the thread, and I'll get to it. But I have health anxiety and OCD that revolves around health, but I also have somatic symptom disorder, which I didn't even know was a separate thing. And I personally think it's really challenging, and all OCD is really challenging, but OCD loves to use facts. And if you really have a headache or you really have something pulsating, or you really have this or that, like your OCD uses it as facts. Well, then what do? It's not that, oh my God, I'm afraid I'm going to get this, or I remember like, what if I, and then I was very much, what if I get HIV? What if I get AIDS? What if I get MS? But I didn't have any symptoms toward it. But as I've gotten older, things pop up. And once those do, my OCD gets triggered. And I've talked about it many times in these community conversations, various things that have popped up. And it's really challenging. And I think it's valid to think that, something may be physical. And I think our OCD, we're catastrophic thinkers. We kind of automatically go to that Z scenario. I remember, and I talked about this, I don't know, maybe 2 years ago, my tip of my tongue started twitching for no reason, like that twitch in your eye that you get occasionally. And on day one, I was like, oh, whatever, that's just weird. On day two, I was like, oh, I'm sure it'll go away. And on day three, I had convinced myself that I had ALS and a few months to live, because I'm an expert. And I know that if it doesn't go away in 3 days, then it must be something extremely serious. And it's really challenging. I have a good team of experts that I can defer to when I know my insight is low about those things, and set a plan. Okay, you're going to go to your doctor. I think that's valid, but you're not going to try to get in early. Whenever they have an appointment available, it is not an emergency, because that's what somebody without somatic or health anxiety would do, right? But if things change, if you start to develop other symptoms, then you move that along and cross that bridge when you go to it. And then when I went to the doctor and he's like, oh, I want to send you to a neurologist, it was like, but I wanted to go that morning, and it was like, no, he can't see me for 3 months. And it eventually went away, and who knows what it was. But it's really challenging. And I think, just like with any subtype and symptom of OCD, it's all about sitting with the unknown. And I know you feel that much closer to the fear because you have something that's actually occurring. But there's a lot of examples of OCD that, where something is actually occurring, just like Beth and COVID. It's a real thing. People are getting it. So I understand what you're going through, Maya, very, very well. And it is really challenging. And I would encourage you to, I don't know if you're working with a provider or a clinician, but that can be very, very helpful. And I'm also happy to answer any additional questions that you have. And thanks for all this. What? You've been so helpful. Katie's amazing. So thank you for all the support. Sorry, I was just reading your comments. Forgot I was here for a moment. And Maya, thanks you too. When I convince myself that it's just anxiety, the symptoms can get better. Anxiety isn't dangerous. Sometimes somatic symptoms are heart racing, heart palpitations. What if it's my heart, nausea, dizziness? All of that can be very triggering too, and lend itself to, can let OCD convince you that it's something more than it is. But anxiety is not dangerous. It is not dangerous. In fact, for those of you that don't know, anxiety is a response meant to save your life. When the big bad dinosaur is chasing you, and you sweat, so the monster can't grab you, you slip. You become nauseous, so you vomit, so you become lighter and can move faster. This is stuff I've read. It's weird. So I remember when I learned early on that anxiety was like, oh, well, great, panic is fantastic. It's supposed to save my life. Didn't work out. But it is helpful to know that anxiety is not dangerous. Doesn't mean that it isn't comfortable or that it isn't hell riding through a panic attack, but totally relate. I'm sure lots of people do, Maya. So thank you for sharing. Grace at 7:19 p.m. I don't need to read the time anymore since I pull it up myself. We just had a patient who was bleeding pretty badly, and I got blood on my arm. For context, I have contamination OCD and also work on an ambulance. But I ignored all the OCD intrusive thoughts and continued to provide good care to the critical patient and made OCD take a back seat. Hell yes. That's awesome, Grace. I love that so much. Talk about living into your values, supporting someone else, all of the things. I think it's a very valid anxiety response. And maybe you've had some thoughts afterwards, maybe not, but that's awesome. Thank you for sharing. Who else has wins? I love wins. Actually, yes, they did give me tramadol in the hospital, but then they just they gave me an anti-inflammatory of some sort. But I'm not a big medication taker. So if I can, mostly because I'm on 1,000 medications for this stuff. So I'm not big in adding to it. So unless I absolutely have to, there were a couple times I took it because the pain got bad enough, but I don't think I've taken anything for it in about 3 or 4 days, 5 days maybe. Okay, Beth Carducci. So I'm thinking of going to the DMV on September 17th. I'm hoping I can push myself to do it. I'm petrified. All right, Beth, let's dig in a little bit. Let me just look real quick. I want to Department of Motor Vehicles. Oh, you guys are awesome. I love your comments. Real quick, Beth, before Lydia whacked her ribs on the edge of the pool while trying to get out, I slipped. My ribs were one of the areas of my body I've been most anxious about hurting over the years. Yeah, it's hard. It's very challenging. Oh, sorry, I tripped down the stairs. I fell down the stairs and broke my foot in 2 places. And how that triggered everything else, but I'm okay. So, Beth needs to renew. I know you posted it up at the top, Beth. Here it is. So Beth has to renew her license ID so I can sell crab stuff on Etsy, which I love this idea for business. I would have to go to the DMV and take my mask off to get my pic taken. My therapist is working me to happen. Beth's fear is COVID, and especially long COVID. I don't know how to go about it. I'm terrified. Can't wear an N95 because it's too tight. It will leave marks on my face. It has to be the paper masks, and I will have to take it off for a minute. No. All right. So before I weigh in, and I did ride in an ambulance, and I was kind of pissed. They didn't run red lights, and I was like, what the hell? This is expensive. You could at least run some. No, you're not a code 1. I'm like, well, I don't know. So, all right. Anyway, so yes. Oh, you were talking about Grace working on an ambulance. I misread that. Either way, Grace, I should have dropped your name. So Beth, I'm curious what everyone thinks about Beth's scenario. So Beth wants to open a business. She needs to renew her driver's license to do it. And in order to do that, she needs to go to the DMV in public and wear a paper mask and take it off for the picture and then leave. So what are some things we can suggest to Beth? And I know Beth well enough to know that she also has the insights. So Beth, I'm curious what you would say to someone else that would pose that scenario to you. Robert wrote, Beth, I had to go to the DMV after my first vaccination in 2021. It was white knuckling all the way for me, but I felt better about it shortly afterwards, decided to have more faith in the vaccination. All right. Thank you, Robert. Who else has some insight on Beth's situation and how we can support her? I just want to call out Jen's comment. I had the best talk with some friends, educating them on OCD aside from what social media shows. It was so great. Bringing awareness one person at a time felt so. I love that, Jen. And that, in essence, is what advocacy is boiled down to. It's those singular conversations. Thank you for sharing that with me. I love that. Or with us, sorry. Oh, good night, Brooke. Thank you. And thank you, Love Lana. And thank you, Isastasia. Oh, this is so Beth's suggestion, I would tell them not to go. I think that's a wonderful suggestion, Beth. Let's see here. I'm not going to forget you, Beth. I've got some thoughts. Of course, I wish you well, Ethan. Not a nice time, especially with the OCD thoughts. I understand the whole health anxiety thing. That's why I spent so long in hospital. There was no way I was going to home to my own with my contamination health anxiety. But hey, I didn't think I'd get through it, and I did. So you will too. Best of luck. Thank you, Nikki. Straight from Dublin. Okay. So Alex, she wrote, you know, if you can't, you won't know if you can get over it if you don't try. Jen wrote, Beth, do it and stick with the ick. Heck yeah. Lydia wrote, I think you should do it, Beth. So Beth wrote, then I will have to be petrified after, thinking everything I feel is going to turn into COVID. Eep. I like eep. Cash, Jen, indeed, stick with the ick. Rosie, you can do it. If you get COVID, you can handle that too. All right. I love all this. And Grace, thank you. I was wondering. I figured that's what it was, but you know, a guy can hope. So here's what I'll say. First of all, Beth. Oh, we got more. Hey, Sean, thank you so much. Sean said I would say to try to see it as an opportunity to make your OCD smaller. Beautiful. Also, try to see the bigger picture. You need to pursue your values, your business. Beautifully said, Sean. Wow, I love that so much. Cash said, do a foot of crabs. And that's true. You can handle the feeling of being petrified. So, Beth, first of all, I want you to think about where you were a few years ago, that you weren't leaving your house at all, and what you've accomplished thus far, okay? You've come so far, and you've done so many things that I know you didn't think you were going to do. So that's number one. Number two is no one here can give you certainty that you won't get COVID or long COVID, okay? No one can do that, unfortunately. We can talk about mitigating risk, and we can talk about, you know, you'll wear a mask and you'll only take it off for a second. And we can say all of the sort of reassuring things that may or may not be helpful. So there's two parts to this. One is, I know that there is COVID and there is long COVID and people are dying from COVID and all of those things. That is all true. But I think we can also acknowledge that OCD is at play here, okay? And OCD, Beth, being honest, is creating the reality that you are afraid of. Because if you have long COVID that you also are afraid of getting, then you're afraid of dying, not functioning, you know, insert fear, right? And right now, the hindrance that you're facing living toward your values is severely hindered by OCD. And I want you to correct me or say, you know, that's BS or that's not the truth at all, if I'm incorrect. But typically OCD creates the reality of the fear that we're afraid of getting. You know, if you're afraid to go outside because you're sick, you stay in all day, you stay in bed, you remove yourself from germs, you're literally living the life you're afraid of by going out and getting sick. I think that they said it best. You have two choices. You can live in fear of this thing, or you can live toward your values and take a shot. And I know it seems so scary to do that, but fighting OCD is really scary sometimes. But I think not living your life in the way you want to live it is scarier, at least in my mind. And I hope you're reading all the comments. There's some great thoughts in this. Yeah, I got COVID on my honeymoon for the first time after almost 4 years. Robert hasn't gotten it yet. But it's not about whether you get it or you don't get it. I'm glad you're reading the comments, Beth. It isn't about whether you get it or not get it. It is about you taking control of your actions and your values and doing what you love. And it doesn't mean that you can't mitigate the possibility. You are allowed to wear a mask. You are allowed to bring hand sanitizer. You're allowed to be scared and nervous and have anxiety. You're allowed to cry. You're allowed for it to be an ugly experience, right? But if you think about how much joy opening this business will give you, if you think about how much happiness it will give you, if you feel like how much more purpose it will give you, if I think about your brother stopping over unexpectedly and all the other things, see, I mean, you just said it. You want to go to CrabCon 2025. I miss my life. Yes. And OCD will continue to take it. You have to take the risk, because you know what else you don't have certainty over? That COVID will kill you, that you'll get long COVID. There's all these things that have to happen There's all of these things, right? And it's so easy for our brains to jump from A to Z, right? You've already got long COVID and lost your life if you do this thing. When in reality, the decisions that we made to make OCD protect ourselves is really what takes our life away. So when I chose not to get a CAT scan, I felt like I put my life at risk. I fell down. I broke bones. I could have hit my head. I may not have remembered, but it wasn't worth it to me because I know OCD. Hey, Mike Sizemore, I know OCD, will take my life much quicker. So I think we have to look at the reality of the situation, Beth. And the reality of the situation is, yes, if you go outside in public to a grocery store or a DMV, and we can argue that there are more people at the DMV or less or whatever, there's the possibility that you get COVID. But if you wear a mask, we know that it's small. If you sanitize, we know that it's smaller. And we know that also, this is very reassuring what I'm telling you, but I think that it's valid and important because I think for you, Beth, you have to look at facts. And we know that also it's about viral load, right? And you have to breathe in a certain amount of the virus in order to get sick. And reality, taking off your mask for the 10 seconds it takes to take a photo and putting it back on, understand the proximity of people to you. The other reason I'm comfortable saying these reassuring things is because OCD is going to argue with it anyway. So it's not really about that, but we have to look at facts. Those are the facts. That's what the CDC would tell you. OCD will tell you everything else, which is why we have to go with radical faith. Radical faith is my favorite practice because radical faith is all about not knowing where you're going to land, but taking the step anyway, taking the leap, trusting all of us, trusting this process, trusting that OCD is a liar and a fake and a fraud. And Beth, you can listen to OCD say, yeah, but there's COVID. Yes, but there's long COVID. Yes, but there are people on the news. That's fine. Do it. Do it. Do you understand the win? You could go, you could cover your face, you could close all your holes, you could hold your breath. It'd be such a huge win for you, Beth. Just the level of uncertainty of going to do that. And I promise you that it will lead to even greater steps forward. We all believe in you. I think you said September 17th was correct. I would love, my next community conversation is October 1st. Sorry, it's going to be a minute. I would love for you to get back on and say, my store is open. Where do we go to buy? I think you've got this. And I think you've come so far already and fought so much stuff. I frankly don't care if you white knuckle it, if you choose to embrace the uncertainty, if you don't embrace the uncertainty, if you run in and squeeze your bum. I don't care. I think you should go for it. And I think it would be amazing. And I think you'll be insanely proud of yourself. So, and I know everyone here believes that too. While we can't give you certainty that you won't get COVID, I think the chances are small. And I think we should live with that little bit of uncertainty to follow your values and dreams and goals and live that big, beautiful life that you deserve that has COVID and OCD you felt like robbed you since, it all began. So we love you and we support you, whatever you do. There is no shame. And this is a safe space, and anybody who doesn't make it so will get the boot. So whatever you do, it's like you'll be in a public restroom. I think you stand up at the DMV. I don't think you sit in a chair. But either way, I think then you have to show us the picture. I mean, I think this picture will be amazing. I don't know if Beth will be completely white. I don't know if it'll the face. I don't know what it'll be like, but I think that whatever. Nah, there's a chair. But I think whatever this picture is, Beth, you have to share it with us. But no, in all seriousness, we would love for you to go. You deserve that life, and if you don't too, we'll continue supporting you until you do. So, I saw a question up above. Let me get back to it. from Semina. Hope I got that right. Does OCD make you feel numb? I was distant for several months, and it caused my relationship. I don't believe I have ROCD, but I realized that OCD can significantly impact relationships in other ways. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you do not need, ROCD specifically to impact romantic relationships or other relationships. I think that, well, the OCD itself can cause depression. Depression can make you feel numb. You can feel numb to sort of protect yourself from compulsing and obsessing and not wanting to feel anything because the feelings are so intense, and therefore, yeah, it impacts your relationship. And also, any type of OCD can impact your relationship. If you're seeking reassurance all the time, if you're seeking enabling from a partner, from a parent, from a caretaker or a caregiver, you definitely don't. It isn't always our OCD just because it's impacting some sort of relationship. So absolutely it can make you feel numb. And usually it's a product of the depression that comes from the OCD, but sometimes you just don't know what you feel anymore, and you sure as hell don't want to feel the anxiety. So you just try to numb out, and that can definitely impact a lot of things in your life, not just your romantic relationship. So 100%. And I would also, if they haven't answered already, I would imagine that lots of people have felt that way as well. Alex, she wrote, how do you let go of control with OCD? I mentioned that I want to be a huggy person again, and I'm affectionate, but usually avoid hugging. And my mom went to hug me. I was like, no. Great question, Alex. And I haven't seen you before. I apologize if you've been here. I'm clearly getting old. I'm crutches and watching birds, but it's nice to see you. So here's the great paradox of OCD, which is the more we let go of control, the more in control we feel, because we don't have a lot of control over much. So OCD wants us to have control and certainty over all of these things to prevent the fear, not have the feeling, whatever it is. When in reality, we have two things we can control. We can control our focus and we can control our behavior. So what we're choosing, I'm focusing on this live stream, and I'm behaving in a way that is hopefully decent and trying. But while that's happening, I'm having lots of thoughts and lots of feelings that I'm not necessarily sharing, right? But that's all we have control over. So the big myth that OCD tries to sell us is, well, if we could just get control over X and have certainty, then we will have peace and serenity. And in reality, you may, when I heard this stuff, I was like, yeah, I know we don't control. But here's the amazing thing. If you believe you can deal with whatever comes up, if Beth believes that she can deal with COVID if she gets it, that she's strong enough, that she has a support system enough, and if you start to believe that whatever it is, if I have to cross that bridge, I will figure out how to cross that bridge and I will accomplish that and get to the other side, then you no longer need certainty, because it doesn't matter what that bridge is, you will be able to do it. And suddenly you can let go of control because you believe that whatever life throws at you, you can handle it. And it's not saying, I'm not saying that I think I can handle everything. I don't. But surprisingly, when stuff is thrown at me that terrifies me, I find an inner strength that I didn't know I had. And for those of you that weren't here in March and April, I talked about they discovered a mass in my abdomen. They thought it was cancer. They don't think it is anymore. My biggest OCD fear forever was finding a tumor. Granted, it was in my head. And if you'd have asked me what I would have been like if I was diagnosed with a mass that they weren't sure what it is, I would have told you I'd spend every day in bed. I wouldn't function. I wouldn't be able to do anything. And life would be over. And it was the opposite. I realized that I had no interest in having a relapse. And so I just dove in, embracing the unknown, the uncertainty, released control completely, and had a pretty good 3 months until I got my scan. And they said, we don't think this is cancer. We're going to scan it again in 6 months. So that's coming up in December. But my point is that we don't know how we're going to respond to a situation until we're in it. And in the meantime, it's anticipatory anxiety and it's fear. And so this gorgeous paradox exists where the minute you let go of control and the minute you say to yourself, you know what, if it happens, when it happens, I will deal with it then. And until then, I'm going to live my life and move forward. You feel so in control of your life. It's a beautiful thing. So that is how I let go of control with OCD, by simply understanding that by dropping the rope, I feel more in control and that I'm capable of handling the things that OCD tries to tell me I'm not capable of handling. And of course, there's a whole rabbit hole of modalities of treatment talking about values and ways to pursue and motivate yourself and things like that. But I love that paradox because I think that's powerful to understand. It's like, wait a second, by holding on to control, I'm actually creating this feeling that I don't have control over anything. And I think that's important to recognize. Well, there you go. You do have, yeah, I think you have to lean into the fear and let go of control. Like, you don't have control over other people and whether they choose to hug you. And I mean, your space is your right, but you know, your mother. And I think it's this idea of, like, my question to you is, okay, you side hugged her, but how are you in this moment? How are you now? And I think you're asking all the right questions, but you're here and you're talking and you survived, right? And so the question becomes, how do I become a huggy person, which is what you, and it's continuing to take a risk and take a chance because you love, I'm very touchy-feely. I'm very affectionate. I always get in trouble at the conference because I'm always like, hi, and they're like, no. And I'm like, sorry. So I think you're asking all the right questions. So keep at it, Alex. Keep hugging, and maybe we'll meet at the conference and we'll do a big hug. I would love that. Maya wrote, Beth, I also have trouble going to public spaces and going outside little by little helps a lot. The exposures weaken the intrusive thoughts. Beautifully said, Maya. Thank you so much for that. Selwyn wrote, Beth, my daughter has MS and OCD and just caught influenza A, and she finds strength in her weakness. There's always someone far worse than ourselves, and we can draw from that. We are stronger than OCD wants us to believe, as scary as it is. It's very true. It's very, very true. We are stronger than our OCD. Deleuze in the house. I need some tips on how to fight this OCD. The obsessions are extremely loud and distressing right now, so there's barely any space between a thought and a compulsion. But you recognize that there is space, and that's huge. And it is okay that there's barely any space. I know that feels really intense, how the compulsions feel automatic when the obsession comes. So thought, feeling, compulsion. But you know, you have the insight that there is space. So my challenge for you is, when is the first moment you noticed yourself engaging in a compulsion? Because that's the moment I then want you to do your best to stop the compulsion, recognize that that's the space you need to try to resist and engage in the response prevention piece of ERP, right? So if we start to get really tangled up and we start missing that opportunity where it feels automatic, the compulsions feel automatic, the next place we want to go is, when do I suddenly come back to the present and realize, oh man, I'm doing this thing that I don't want to be doing? And when you realize that, are you able to come back to the present? Are you able to stop compulsing and move forward? Embrace the uncertainty, stick with the ick, feel the anxiety, move toward a value. And even if you compulse again, how many times can you keep coming back to that? Lower the expectation. And so that's what I would try to do. I know, Deleuze, you have so much knowledge about OCD, and I'm sorry you're struggling right now. So I would take the opportunity to, when you're aware of what you're doing, try and stop it then and try to recreate that space. As long as there's a gap there, and there always is, you can make it wider and wider and wider and wider and see how that goes for you. But I'm sorry, we're sending you lots of love. I know it's hard. Oh, I love this. CJ wrote, try to take 3 breaths before the compulsion. And I know maybe you're not noticing, as I said, the compulsion is becoming automatic, but maybe when you notice that you're doing the compulsion, take some deep breaths. Start to do a mindfulness exercise. Notice the colors around you, what it smells like, what it looks like, what you're hearing, some 5 senses, sort of ground yourself, and so forth. Thanks so much, everyone. I'll be reading the comments again to make sure I didn't miss anything. Also, my therapist was wondering what you guys had to say about this, and I said, I'm so supported. Yes, you are, Beth. You're very supported. We support you regardless, but we'd love to see that picture. I know I would. Oh, Cash, leave her alone. Yeah, there you go. There's no drive-through voting this year, so I have to go inside for that. I have to vote. Yeah, choosing values over. The way you describe the crabs, I feel like the Ecuadorian crab would have an accent. Say hello. And not that he's French, but I don't know. It just seemed like, don't listen to me. I don't know anything about what I'm talking about. I love all the support for Deleuze, absolutely. And Cash, appreciate you don't have to talk, you don't have to comment. You can just be present and listen and make questionably decent jokes. Alex, I knew in their convo, I know to go for it, but OCD makes it to where it feels like I'm forced to. I'm going to let go. Listen, give yourself lots of compassion and lots of grace. I'm not, and Katie will tell you, I'm not someone who, and I'm not saying you're doing this, but it just reminded me, I'm not big on proclamations. And I'm not saying you saying I'm going to let go of the fear is a proclamation. But I think a proclamation is usually a larger promise to ourselves that is reasonable. And an example is like, I am no longer ever going to do this again, or this is the moment I change and I can now see. And I'm not a fan of that because I don't think it's realistic. And I think that OCD is a dance, and I haven't thought about head hitting in years, and it was right in my face, and other things pop up. And I think it's a process, right? And so I don't think you make a proclamation toward a process. I think you make a promise toward a process. I think, as Katie says, you make a compassionate commitment. So I think like a compassionate commitment, Alex, meaning, I'm going to work on letting go of this fear. And that way, if you give some hugs, that's freaking awesome. And if you don't, you give yourself the room to be like, that's okay. That's okay. I wanted to resist. I tried. It was just too hard in this moment. Now I'm going to try again tomorrow. It's accepting where you are, but still wanting more for yourself, right? So I think that's important. I think having that compassion and grace is really necessary to move forward with fighting OCD. My analogy for me, compassion is like learning Japanese backwards. I learned it later in life, and I will always be a student of it, never a master. But with that being said, I really thrive in managing my OCD by offering myself compassion. When I compulse, I don't flog myself. I don't tell myself I'm a horrible person. And by the way, that also reminds me, that was the other reason I didn't ask for the CAT scan, if you were with me at the beginning of the conversation, because I also remembered the shame I would feel if I did it afterwards, how I would feel, the shame, the guilt, the frustration. Why did I do that? Of course I didn't. How am I? And I didn't want to feel that shame and guilt. And those feelings are valid. Should I feel those things? I have a disorder. So I think we can make room for those, and it sucks. And I think shame and guilt is a real part of this process. But that's why we have to offer ourselves lots and lots of self-compassion. And had I got the CAT scan, I would have felt those things. And Katie would have reminded me to also be like, look, we're not perfect. This is a really difficult experience. I wish you hadn't, but also I can understand why you did. That conversation would have happened. And so for all of you, we should have a conversation next time after we look at Beth's driver's license picture, which she will email me so I can share it. We should have a conversation on self-compassion, because I don't know that we've talked about it in a while, and it's so crucial. It's so important. Cash, I'm talking about you. Thank you, Beth. I appreciate that. Beth, I'm going to wear 3 masks. Listen, man, whatever, you could put a bag over your, well, not a plastic bag, a paper bag, but I know you're joking and you're probably being serious, or maybe you're totally being serious, but just go get the picture. I think it would be a huge win in the direction, and there's no rules to this thing. But you will have to come back. You know what, Beth? Well, I can talk online, but what'd be neat is if you would be willing to come on here and share the story if you did it. And it doesn't have to be like next community conversation, but I think that would be cool to have you on, because I think it would be a huge win, no matter how it goes. Oh, I have the mask my doctor, she said, uses N95 3M 816. Yeah, okay, gotcha. We all are. This is like the slogan for individuals with OCD. Yes, totally feel you on that. Oh, Cash. And that's true, Zach. There's no face mask that will fully reassure an OCD obsession. Rooting for you. I think that's well said. But you know all that, so we're going to take a risk. We'll all be here with you, and we love you regardless. Please know that if you take anything away from this conversation, know that we are rooting for you, and we will love you if you do, and we will love you if you don't. But the reason we want you to is because we know how much you want your life back, and we want that for you too. Oh, I love that. And this is CJ. I also want to be a volunteer to help people ride horses with disabilities, mental and physical, so afraid to be near others. I would have to touch the person by holding them up by a special belt. We want you to have this life back. You deserve it. And thank you, Isastasia, for appreciating my Ecuadorian crab joke. We talked about naps last week, Toulouse. I think naps are becoming a big compulsion for me, so I need to cut them out somehow. I remember naps being mentioned by Zach. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because I mean, it's an easy escape, right? We can take naps, and naps are ultimately avoidance. I mean, when you need self-care, but OCD can be exhausting, and kind of finding that balance. But I think you have more insight than you think you have, Toulouse, simply by just the comments that you're leaving, and I would be optimistic about that. And so I know it sucks to sort of be in a rut and have a blip, and that's the time where maybe what we were doing regularly before isn't enough, and we have to up the game. We have to bring out the extra tools and weapons and things like that and really fight a little harder. But you've got it. I know you've got it. I love what we do and stick with the ick, making compassionate commitments. Yes, we do. I just want to pull this up, and hopefully you don't mind, Deleuze, and Cash said it too. I can only speak for myself. And, when I was really struggling, I really disliked myself. I disliked me with OCD. I don't know that I didn't like me. I think it's really challenging to separate the identity from the OCD, especially when you're really linked to it. And we are not our OCD. We are not. We are who we are. And our OCD is a disorder and a disease. That's just a fact. And we can go into existential conversation. Well, it's in your brain. It's part of your head. Yes, it is a part of you in the sense that it is inside you, no different than cancer is a part of you if you have it, or MS in someone's daughter's case, or whatever. But it is not who you are. It is not defined. So the first thing I like to do is say, I don't like who I am with OCD because it sucks. And you don't get to be your authentic self. I would imagine that Deleuze, the individual, is probably pretty awesome. And Cash is pretty awesome as well. And you're not alone in feeling those feelings, because I know I felt broken. I know I felt lack of hope. I felt all the feelings, all the things. I mean, this is such a larger conversation, but I want you to give yourself space for that. I want you to give yourself room for that thought. And just because you have that thought and that feeling doesn't make you a bad person. And I want you to understand that there's help, there's hope. We can do this. We can do this. Okay. And so I understand the pain that comes along with that. I think we all do. But it is not a reality. You are a likable person. You're a good person, and OCD just makes it a little bit more difficult. But I think give yourself lots of love, give yourself lots of compassion and grace to feel that, have that thought, and also see it for what it is. And it's okay to be there right now, but also know that you're not alone in thinking that. And hell, I don't even know that you need OCD to sometimes not like yourself. So I feel you on that. But you'll get out of this. I think you got some good advice from the folks here. And so I think you'll kick out of this and find your way once again. No problem. No, not a plastic bag, Beth. Oh my God. That's the last thing I need, or anybody needs. All right, let me quickly scroll down. We're at 8 o'clock. Let's see here. I'd love for you and Katie to join mine and Jenny O's OC Warrior Badass Tribe game invite. Yeah, let us know. We're always down. We love games and we love you. So that's easy. Sorry, I'm just scrolling quickly. There you go. That's what I wanted to see. It's a super weird practice. All right, real quick. So I remember my therapist teaching me self-compassion. She was like, you have to have room and it's okay where you are. And I'm the type of person that's like, you got to do it. You got to be. And this is after I got better from OCD. This was like just navigating life in general and holding myself to crazy high standards and perfectionism. And the analogy I used in arguing with her, because it just didn't make sense to me. I'm like, let me get this straight. So if you're in the finals of a basketball game, professional basketball game, and you're down by 20 at halftime, does the coach take you back there and say, hey guys or gals, or you know what, this is fine. Let's just embrace where we are. We're 20 points down. That's okay. Let's just sit with that experience. Let's just make room for that. I think that's good. Let's just give ourselves let's just hug ourselves about being 20 points down. And let's go back out there and have fun. And I was like, no, of course they don't do that. And she goes, yes, but they're functioning. You're not functioning. I was like, okay, that's valid. But I couldn't understand. Like I thought you have to be hard on yourself and you have to be, you have to hold yourself to standards and all of those things. Self-compassion is a amazing tool and practice. It's challenging. It's easy to forget no matter how many times you've engaged in it. I personally like workbooks. That's what really set me off on sort of my self-compassion journey. I did a Kristen Neff workbook, a self-compassion workbook. That was before Kim Quinlan had her self-compassion for OCD workbook out, which I highly recommend. It's amazing. And that also gives you a bit of a guide to read through and do exercises. So for those of you listening, let me see if I can find it real quick before I leave. Self-compassion. Oh man, I can't type when I'm on the spot. So scary. Okay, here it is. Yeah, this is it. Okay, here, I'll just put it in the, there we go. There's a link. That's a great workbook for specifically self-compassion and OCD. And let's take you off. So with all of that, you guys are awesome tonight. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. We actually have a meeting, believe it or not. At 8:15, I have another meeting. Day doesn't end. But usually we just like to be together, We just like to spend quality time and decompress. That is true, Deleuze. I mean, this is why we should have this conversation next time. We have, I think it's women. I mean, if you look at the numbers and the stats, women access mental health treatment way more than men do. I think there's, men you're not supposed to cry, like all that kind of stuff. Yeah, just have to soldier through these things. Absolutely. Absolutely. And there's a huge stigma. And that's why we do, there's a huge stigma around, men and seeking psychiatric treatment and OCD and crying and being emotional and all that stuff. So 100% agree with you. All right. I don't know if Cash is still here, but I kind of like the rainbow and butterfly and the caterpillar. Always keep evolving. Always remember humanity, empathy is keywords. Sorry, I had a blip. Well, happens. We love you, Cash. All right. Thank you so much for being here. I want to thank the IOCDF, and I want to thank me for being behind the scenes. I think that's important. Totally kidding. But I'm totally not kidding. Again, today is World Suicide Prevention Day. Really, 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 really important day. If you've been touched by suicide in some way, I know you know what I'm talking about. It is preventable. There's help. There's hope. So if you know somebody, if please don't hesitate to reach out to them and offer support. Also, I thought I put it. Thursday is a research roundtable with Kyle King and John Abramowitz, so you won't want to miss that Thursday at 12 o'clock. The IOCDF is, what am I missing? The IOCDF is donor supported and a nonprofit organization, so please consider donating at iocdf.org/donate. You can also learn more if you like and subscribe and follow on all the social media. You'll be able to be notified when we go live and all that good stuff. Also, don't hesitate if you have questions, comments, if you need help, visit iocdf.org for all of that. And and also, I love this. This is a great resource directory. If you're looking for treatment providers in your area, you can visit iocdf.org/find help. And you can search by zip code. That's out of the country stuff. You can search by insurance and all kinds of stuff. So it's a great resource. And with all of that, thank you so much for joining me tonight. So my next community conversation will be October 1st. I really hope to see all of you here. For the new faces that were here, thank you. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got something out of it. I hope you didn't find me entirely annoying. For my friends who come back time and time again, I really, really appreciate you. Thank you for creating this space and giving us opportunity to talk about these things and supporting one another. This is just in this crazy world, this is such a special place. And I really, really appreciate every one of you sincerely. So with that, have a wonderful day. Stay safe, stay vigilant, feel all the feels. Don't let OCD off the hook. And we'll see you October 1st. Have a beautiful night.